The Tale of Thomas the Turkey. Chapter 1. A Golden Beginning. It was a sunny day in March when the heavy wooden gates swung open. Thomas stepped onto the soft, thawing earth of the Wilson family farm. He was a young turkey then. His feathers were still patchy down, and his wattle was a bright, shy pink. The air smelled of sweet hay, damp soil, and the fresh promise of spring. The farm wasn't just land, it was a kingdom. Rolling green hills and red-painted fences seemed to stretch on forever. Farmer Wilson, a man with a beard like a fluffy white cloud and hands as rough as tree bark, smiled down at him. "Welcome home, little one," Wilson said. His voice was a low rumble that vibrated in Thomas's chest. He tossed a handful of cracked corn onto the ground. It wasn't just food, it felt like a gift. Mrs. Wilson watched from the porch, wiping her hands on a checkered apron. She smelled like cinnamon and dried apples. Her eyes were kind, but they held a sadness that Thomas was too young to understand. But it was the citizens of this kingdom who truly mattered to Thomas. First, there was Barnaby, a giant horse with hooves the size of dinner plates. Barnaby had a gentle soul as old as the hills. He lowered his massive head to sniff Thomas, his warm breath making a cloud in the cool air. Barnaby had seen many springs and many turkeys come and go. There was a deep wisdom in his dark eyes that Thomas often mistook for being tired. Then there was Henrietta, a red chicken who wore her comb like a jagged crown. She told everyone the news and warned them of danger, even when there wasn't any. "New bird, she clucked, walking in tight, nervous circles. "Mind the tractor, watch out for the cat, and never, ever eat the blueberries by the fence. And don't look at the moon too long, it steals your luck." And finally there was Pip. Pip was a piglet with one floppy ear and a tail that couldn't decide which way to curl. He didn't just walk, he bounced. He was full of wild energy and had a heart too big for his body. He trotted up to Thomas, his nose twitching, smelling of milk and mud. "I'm Pip," the piglet squealed, stumbling over his own hooves. "You look funny. Your nose is wiggly. I like you. Do you want to chase butterflies? I almost caught one yesterday, but it used magic to get away." In that moment, surrounded by the gentle moo of the dairy cows, Bessie, Buttercup, and Belle, Thomas puffed out his chest. He let out a small gobble. It wasn't very loud, just a little squeak against the big world, but it felt right. He knew, deep in his bones, that he had finally found a home. Chapter 2. The Metal World. But Thomas knew, in the quiet corners of his mind, that the world was not always green. He remembered the time before. Before the soft earth and the smell of cinnamon, there was only the grey. He had hatched in a place where the sun did not exist. There were only buzzing tubes of harsh, white light that never blinked. The ground wasn't dirt. It was cold, hard wire that hurt his soft feet. There were thousands of them there, a sea of yellow fluff and frightened peeps. It smelled of sharp chemicals and panic. In the metal world, you were not a Thomas. You were not a little one. You were just noise. There was no Barnaby to nuzzle you, only the mechanical whir of machines that dropped dusty food. Thomas had been smaller than the others. He was often pushed away from the warmth of the heat lamps. He remembered shivering, tucked beneath the wing of a stranger who didn't know him, just trying to survive the never-ending noise. Then came the shaking day, the day the giant crates appeared. Rough hands, not like Farmer Wilson's gentle hands, had grabbed birds by the legs. The world had tilted upside down. There was screaming, pushing, and the scary roar of an engine. Thomas had been shoved into a crate, pressed against plastic bars, watching the grey warehouse disappear. He thought that was the end. He thought the cold would eat him. But then the crate opened. For the first time in his life, he saw colours that hurt his eyes. The blue of the sky, the red of the barn, the green of the grass. He had stumbled out, expecting the wire floor, and landed on the earth instead. Whenever Thomas looked at the rolling hills of the Wilson farm, he didn't just see a field, he saw a miracle. He saw a safe place. It was why he stood so tall when he walked along the fence. He wasn't just guarding a farm, he was guarding the only colour he had ever known. As spring turned into summer, that memory of the cold wire faded, pushed down deep by the warmth of the sun and the joy of having friends. Chapter 3: The Summer of Kings. As the days grew longer and the sun grew hotter, Thomas grew bigger. His feathers turned a beautiful bronze and shining green. He wasn't just a bird anymore. He was a member of the Barnyard Brigade, a secret club with Pip the pig and Barnaby the horse. Life was good. They spent long, lazy afternoons eating clover and laughing until their sides hurt. They talked about the world beyond the fences. Pip believed the world was made entirely of corn. Barnaby believed the world was tired. Thomas believed the world was his to protect. The Great Strawberry Heist. The first real test of their friendship happened in mid-July. Mrs. Wilson's prize-winning strawberry patch was strictly off-limits. It was surrounded by a white picket fence. But Pip claimed he could smell the reddest, juiciest berry in the universe from a mile away. "It calls to me, Thomas," Pip whispered, his eyes wide and serious. "It sings." "It's forbidden," Thomas said, trying to sound like Barnaby, but he felt a little brave. "We just need a boost," Pip begged. "Just one taste." Thomas squatted down near the fence. Pip scrambled onto Thomas's back, his little hooves digging in, then hopped onto Barnaby's nose. The old horse sighed, but he lifted his head like an elevator. Just as Pip grabbed the giant berry, the back door slammed open. It was Buster, the farm dog. Buster was loud and slobbery and thought all other animals were squeaky toys. Thomas gobbled a sharp warning, a sound of command he didn't know he could make. Barnaby neighed, and Pip scrambled back over the fence, tumbling into the mud with a squeal. They ran all the way to the creek, out of breath and muddy. They shared the single smashed strawberry. It was sour and covered in dirt, but to Thomas, it tasted like victory. It tasted like friendship. The storm of the century. August brought the heat and the thunder. One afternoon, the sky turned a dark purple. The wind began to howl like a wolf trying to get in. The animals were scattered in the field when the lightning flashed, smelling of rain and fear. The younger chicks were terrified. They froze in the open field. Barnaby was too big to herd them all quickly. His hooves slipped in the sudden mud. Thomas felt a deep feeling inside him override his fear. He wasn't just a turkey. He felt like a dinosaur, a descendant of kings. Spreading his magnificent tail feathers to act as a shield against the rain, Thomas marched into the storm. "Follow the feathers!" he boomed, his voice deep and loud. "Eyes on me! Move!" He guided the shivering chicks and a frightened Pip through the mud. The wind whipped against Thomas's face, stinging his eyes, but he didn't blink. He marched them until they were all safely inside the dry, warm barn. That night, sleeping huddled together in the hay, Thomas watched the lightning flash through the cracks in the wood. He felt a heavy responsibility. He wasn't just living here, he was their guardian. The Halloween Ghost. The final adventure was the spookiest of all. It was Halloween night. The moon was full and bright orange, casting long, twisting shadows that looked like grasping fingers. "I heard a noise in the old silo," Henrietta whispered, shaking so much she looked twice her size. "A moaning sound. It's a ghost. It comes for our corn." Thomas, Pip and Barnaby decided to investigate, mostly to make Henrietta quiet down. The silo was dark and echoed with every step. "Ooh," came the sound. Pip hid behind Thomas's legs, shaking. "I'm too young to be haunted, Thomas. I haven't even eaten a pumpkin yet." Thomas felt his heart hammering against his ribs. He wanted to run, but Pip was holding his leg. He stepped forward. "Show yourself, spirit," Thomas gobbled bravely. "This is brigade territory." Suddenly, a pair of glowing yellow eyes opened in the darkness. Pip squealed. But then, the ghost let out a soft hoot. It was just Oliver, the old barn owl, who had a sore throat from the cold air. They all laughed nervously. They spent the rest of the night eating leftover pumpkin seeds and telling scary stories under the moonlight. But Barnaby didn't laugh. He watched Thomas with that same sad look. "You are a good leader, Thomas," Barnaby said softly. "You have a strong heart. A big heart." "The biggest," Pip agreed. Thomas beamed, smoothing his feathers. He didn't notice that Barnaby looked away, toward the farmhouse, where the calendar on the wall had been flipped to November. Chapter 4. The Cold Room. November arrived quietly. It stripped the leaves from the trees, leaving bare branches scratching at the grey sky. It turned the lush green grass into brown straw. The air had a bite to it that ruffled Thomas's feathers no matter how much he puffed them up. The farm seemed quieter. The laughter of summer felt like a distant memory. The food became more plentiful, corn mixed with sweet molasses, and Thomas ate it happily. He thought he was growing strong for winter. He thought he was preparing to protect the coop from the snow. On one dreary Tuesday, just days before the big feast the humans always talked about, Farmer Wilson came to the coop. He didn't have his usual bucket of corn. He didn't have a smile on his face. He looked serious, his eyes fixed on the ground. He wore a heavy coat that smelled of old rain. "Come on, Thomas," he said softly. His voice was flat and sad. Thomas perked up. He loved walks with the farmer. He stepped forward, expecting a treat or a walk around the fence. "Thomas," Pip squeaked from a mud puddle, "where are you going? We were going to play tag." "I'll be back, Pip," Thomas clucked. "Just helping the farmer. Guard duty, probably." Thomas followed, trusting. He assumed they were going to the vet, or perhaps to a new heated coop for the winter. He walked proudly, trying to match the farmer's long steps. But they walked past the barn. They walked past the silo where Oliver slept. They walked to a small, concrete building near the back of the farm that Thomas had never entered. Farmer Wilson opened the heavy door. He hesitated for a second, his hand resting on Thomas's back. For a moment, the rough hand felt strange, but Thomas shook the thought away. This was his farmer. "In you go, lad," Wilson whispered. Thomas stepped inside, and the heavy door creaked shut behind him. The lock clicked. The room was dark. Only a tiny sliver of light came through a crack in the wall. It was cold, much colder than the outside air. It didn't smell like hay or sweet apples. It smelled sharp. It smelled of wet metal and something old. A shiver rattled through Thomas's body. He looked around. There were no windows. There was no Pip to make a joke. There was no Barnaby to tell him it would be okay. For the first time since that sunny day in March, Thomas felt truly alone. He walked back and forth in the small room, his feet clicking on the cold floor. His heart pounded fast. Thump, 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 thump. He thought of the strawberries. He thought of the storm. He thought of Pip's floppy ear. Why am I here? He wondered. Is this a test? Then the sound began. It started as a low hum that he felt through his feet. Whir, clank, whir, clank. It came from the other side of the wall, a loud grinding sound in the small room. Thomas froze. The feathers on his neck stood straight up. The sound grew louder, changing from a hum to a screeching grind, metal against metal. It roared like a beast worse than any storm or tractor. The floor beneath him shook. The door opened again. Light flooded in, blinding him. A shadow fell over him, the farmer. But he looked different now. He held something silver and heavy. The grinding noise was so loud it drowned out Thomas's own heartbeat. He backed into the corner, his eyes wide with fear. The noise was taking over everything, promising an end to the summer days and the friendship. Suddenly, Thomas understood Barnaby's sadness. He understood the extra corn. He understood the pity in Mrs. Wilson's eyes. He let out a loud, final shriek that cut through the noise. Not a cry for help, but a cry of a broken heart. And in the cold darkness, there was silence.